Welcome everyone to Race for and Everything, episode 274. This was originally designed to be like part 2 of episode of 273. However, we just kind of didn't get around to it, and so I just posted that show as it was. So we're doing a bit of a catch-up, you could say today. Old material, but Knowlesy and I are going to be discussing Anzac Day at the start.
Yes.
Just to kick things off. So,
it's cold these days. It's getting colder.
very, very cold that time of morning. Yes, that is correct. So, look, obviously, people were booing or disrespecting or turning their backs on the Welcome to Country. This was something that was expected. We know this because, cops were there actually waiting for certain people who were, they're saying, people associated with March for Australia, they were the ones specifically targeted. So some of you, no doubt, have seen the footage that the Noticer put out.
Good boys.
Yep. 5 of our people, I was about to say boys, but I don't think it was entirely male. So, 5 of our people were actually said to have been associated with MFA and were detained by police and given move-on notices. They were not allowed to attend the dawn service, and they were told that if they did, they would be arrested and thrown in the watch house. And the reason for it was that hours before, in the eastern states, those associated with March for Australia had interrupted the Welcome to Country. Now, look, I have no doubt. I mean, sure, the people who were detained, did they want to interrupt it? Did they want to boo the Welcome to Country? Yeah, of course, they did. However, I am really questioning the legality of being able to actually target them for that purpose, preemptively, remember, because they hadn't actually done it yet, and then giving move-on notices. Legally, I would like to know how that actually stacks up in court, if you were to take it to court.
Actually, yeah. Jesus Christ.
I mean, is that actually a valid reason to actually give someone a move-on notice? The chance that you might interrupt a public event?
That is an interesting question. Also, I was one of the people there at the King's Park Bond when you had to walk past all the the telescreens all the way down to where it actually went down. The Welcome to Country was all about one sentence. When it was 4 minutes in Melbourne, which was the second to start, and I believe it was 7 and a bit minutes in Sydney. But yeah, no, again, I think they are trying to culturally work this out, remove this, because they know that it's reached its end.
Well, I mean, if they actually are cutting it short, surely that's a win for us. Because, I mean, ultimately, what's the point of booing the Welcome to Country? We want it removed. Preferably we'd like it removed from everything, because either that or acknowledgement of country is attached to just about any event nowadays, including like meetings at work, for Christ's sake.
Yes.
So if they start reining it in, if they start stopping it at certain events or shortening it or whatever, that's a win. And
yes, it is. And by the way, at your workplace, if you see at the foot of the company that's tendering to you or that's applying for some supply for you, it's like, oh, we acknowledge the X, Y, and Z of da 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 da. Well, you might just want to get rid of the email.
Yeah, but look, keep doing it. Anzac Day obviously is the biggest opportunity to to do it, to be heard, and to do it in a crowd so big that people probably aren't even going to know who you are. And the other point I'd like to make about all of this, let's remember how this actually got started. It didn't get started this year. It got started last year by Jacob Hersant, Nathan Bull, and I'm sorry, one other guy. I forget his name. Forgive me. Now, that took some real guts. It was just one event. It got national coverage. It was
Pig and palm.
very controversial. But what was it? What was its effect? It was inspiring. It encouraged many other people, hundreds of people, to actually boo the event nationally. So this is another example of white nationalists leading the way, actually having the bravery, the guts to go out in public and protest in a very valid and meaningful way, where you've got people watching and encouraging the community at large to take action themselves. Another great example is Drag Queen Story Hour. I mean, who were the first people protesting that? It was us. It was white nationalists. And again, it caused such a big fucking stir at the beginning. But then lots of people started doing it. Churches started getting involved, that kind of thing. So, yeah, people who tell you that like our views are fringe or whatever, well, when you actually put them to the test, when we go out there and we stage public events, when we attract attention and put our message out, suddenly people start saying, you know what? I actually agree with those guys and I like what they've done. And I think I'm
action inspires action.
Yes, absolutely. And and one
I've ruined all my shirts, by the way.
So the politicians reacted in the way you would expect.
Cowards.
Yeah, well, no, my favorite one is what Roger Cook said. So he called those booing at Kings Park cretins. But you know what?
He fled the event with police presence.
Now, look, this Anzac Day was not unusual in terms of the usual desecration that occurs. And that is, people vandalizing war memorial statues and that kind of thing. That happens every bloody year. People decapitating statues and all the rest. Where were the politicians talking about that?
Death to the ADF. It's weird that they've now pivoted that movement. Maybe it's to kill it in this country.
Yeah, I mean, look, I even saw one the other day saying it was like lest we forget a massacre of Palestinians in 1918, something like that.
Yeah, well, that was fair war between one country and another, not like occupying a country and then fucking destroying its civilians.
Yeah, I know, it's completely different. But look,
again, they're trying to fucking spin.
We call cretins. What are these people who decapitate statues? What do you call them?
Iconoclasts.
Oh, right.
But yeah, no, it's I think this is a push to delegitimize any anti-Zionist movement in Australia. I think it is.
Look, booing the Welcome to Country is not disrespectful. It's not a desecration of Anzac Day for the simple reason that the Welcome to Country is a desecration, is disrespectful to the diggers. It should not be there. It's a disgrace that we have it there. It's shitting on the memories of the soldiers. So it is absolutely good and proper to show it what it deserves and boo it.
Both Finny and I, we're both native Australian. We're both from the Anglo-Celtic tribe.
You could say that. Um, I'm only second generation Aussie, but I fit into the.
Oh, fuck off. There's Polynesians that claim to be fucking native over here, so fuck off.
Well, yeah. I mean, the point is we integrate, so you know, and we still got plenty of first generation Australians who join nationalist organisations. We got plenty of Poms. We got a couple of Irish, and they fit right in.
Yes.
Anyway,
And I like them, even though they're monotone.
and even though Tony Burke deports them from time to time as well.
Yeah, well, we'll have to fix that.
We will. All right. So we'll get on to the prep that we missed in the last episode. So we're going to talk about the protest laws that were thrown out in New South Wales. So these were the laws prohibiting assembly in certain parts of the Sydney CBD. There were like prescribed zones where protests were allowed to go. And this, of course, was done all as part of the aftermath of the Bondi terrorist shooting.
Mm.
So this is when Chris Minns declared that multiculturalism in New South Wales was flammable, essentially. He said that anything could just set it off, and that meant you would have violence in the streets. Of course, breakdown in social cohesion, as he would like to say. And it's interesting because Chris Minns is actually one of the leaders who really let it slip like a few months earlier when he referred to multiculturalism in Sydney as fragile. We remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So, it went from a fragile state into a flammable state. Now, this has been thrown out. So, it was argued that these laws and expanded police powers were unconstitutional. So, the Chief Justice said that the laws impermissibly burdened the implied right to freedom of political communication under Australia's constitution. So, they were unconstitutional. Now, Chris Minns is in the very awkward position of where he has promised to copy what Queensland has done and outlaw certain slogans, namely globalise the intifada and from the river to the sea. Now, many are questioning whether there's even any point in doing that, because obviously the same protest groups are going to be going to court and challenging those laws as well. And in the Queensland example, it's already in the process of going to court. So this may not look too good if he actually has two court losses in a row over the same issue, trying to fight for the Jews.
Again, it looked good that he was fighting for his benefactors, but no, politically it won't look good. And also, we've already had the case with the it's graffiti, so we'll call it graffiti. That one, that John Farnham thing, and it was, from the river to the sea.
Oh, God, yeah. Because the lyrics have from the river to the sea in it.
I believe so. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I fucking can't stand John Farnham. But yeah, I think that's what it is. No,
but yeah, no, that was a piece of wall art, I guess they call it.
I don't know. How many times has John Farnham retired, by the way?
Weren't we talking about the fact that he was going to do another tour?
Oh, he's been doing that for fucking decades. He was actually taken to court I'm not sure what the outcome of that was, but like some fans launched a class action against him because he kept having these like farewell tours, retirement tours, and then of course the next year he was doing another one. Anyway,
All right.
now look. Also, the reason why this could further hurt Chris Minns is also just the message that the court is sending here, and that is that hey, you're acting like an authoritarian. You're acting like a dictator. You are passing laws that are unconstitutional to stifle freedom of speech in your state. Not only are you trying to pass these restrictive laws, but you're fighting the Australian Constitution. That's not a good look. It's not a good look at all. And further to that, it looks like the state government may actually be liable for damages. Because if you can argue that your political rights have been trampled upon by the government, well, you can sue them. You can sue them, you can get money for damages out of that. And these groups are currently mulling that. And I hope they do it, even though they're people who, I politically don't see eye to eye with, like, except for the Palestinian issue, I guess. I want them to take Minns down because Minns is, I would say, the most philo-Semitic leader we have in Australia at the moment.
The most disgusting piece of fucking parliamentarian bullshit that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
I've heard the term deploy him actually bandied about. Yet. Welcome to hell, Finian.
Yeah, look, he's an absolute darling of the Australian Jewish lobby. They love him. He went to the funerals of every single victim of Bondi. And because Albanese didn't return to Bondi Beach for, I think it was 3 days, Sky News chastised him over that.
Oh, God.
Oh, and also he only went to like a couple of the funerals. They wanted to know why he didn't go to every single one. It was like, guys, he's the prime minister of the fucking country. I think he's kind of busy. I think he's got, some important meetings to attend. He can't go to fucking
possibly in China
15 separate
doing
funerals?
back work.
What?
Yeah, no, the worst part is Sky News was running an entire propaganda, video series. Actually, they just re-released it yesterday evening. Seemed like, oh god, like look at all these people who died, and like I was thinking to myself, and I even asked the lady, it was like, has Sky News ever talked about the checks notes, tens of thousands of fucking Palestinians dead? Oh, actually, put a stop note on that. They got really pissy about that one, the one. I don't want to be ghoulish, but like that one girl who died, that one 13-year-old girl who died. It was like, okay, how many 13-year-old Palestinian girls died in the last fucking half year? Oh, checks notes. It's about 15,000.
Yeah, no, I heard that of all the casualties in Gaza, about 40% are children. So, yeah.
Get
they only had
fucked.
one. So look, in Brisbane, or in Queensland, where, of course, they have laws banning slogans, people are continuing to actually purposely break those laws in public. So they're using From the River to the Sea and Globalize the Intifada. They're either yelling them out or they've got them written on placards or billboards or whatever, and police are going and arresting them. You even had that church who said From the River to the Sea, come and get us, Crisafulli. It's blatant. They're inviting the police to come and arrest them over it. And think of it, if they, have to pay their fines, and some of them say had to spend some time in the watchouts and custody, that kind of thing. Well, again, this is the kind of thing where you can take the government to court for damages because you were subject to unconstitutional laws.
Good.
And again, I hope they do it. I hope they sue the government.
Honestly, they actually should. At this point, I don't think there's much more to come forth from this government, and I don't think there's much more left in supporting this entire institution.
Right. Okay, let's now go to Tasmania. We're not talking about protest laws here. We're talking about the Greens and how they've replaced one of their senators. So this is Senator Peter Wilson, and he's been replaced with Vanessa Blyer. Now, you may not have heard of either of these names here before, but Vanessa Blyer actually had a little bit of a public profile before she went into politics. Why is that? Because she was the lawyer who was part of the legal team that argued that Josh Frydenberg had Hungarian citizenship and therefore was ineligible to sit in Parliament. Do we remember this debacle with the former treasurer, Josh Frydenberg? So his family...
It's very easy to get with Kiwis.
Yeah, well... So his mother fled Hungary, who were, allies of Nazi Germany in World War II. And she escaped via Hungary to Australia, which is, of course, where they ended up settling. Now, at that point, Jews were ineligible for citizenship. So you did have a case where there were many stateless Jews because they were not afforded citizenship in the various countries that were allied with the Axis powers, and Hungary was one of them. And sort of to make good on that, to say sorry later on, Hungary passed retrospective laws that said if you lived in Hungary like during that period of time, during the war, and you were considered to be a non-citizen or stateless, well, they automatically granted you Hungarian citizenship retroactively.
Frydenberg's family also claimed property and fucking basically rent rights.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So,
but also, yeah, and also like his mother, and also grandmother, basically renewed their citizenships to collect rent, as we covered at the time.
Renewed their Hungarian citizenship?
No, just accepted it.
Oh, accepted it, right. Yeah, it makes sense.
And by the way, that played for Mr. Frydenberg's stint at law school and etc. It paid for his entire education. But because he didn't claim it, I guess he's not a Hungarian citizen.
Yeah, and if you claim that he is, you're anti-Semitic. Now, certainly some people who supported going after Frydenberg were, say, counter-Semitic, like us.
Yes.
But look, it's silly to say that someone like Vanessa Blyer was motivated in that capacity. Just remember this. At the time, look at the context when all this was happening. This was when Scott Ludlam, the Greens senator, suddenly, abruptly resigned from Parliament because he discovered that he had dual citizenship with New Zealand. And as soon as that happened, it was like dominoes falling. All of a sudden, all these MPs and senators either resigned or went to a by-election where they went through the process of revoking their dual citizenship and then went to a by-election. Barnaby Joyce, for example, a lot of people forget this, but he had to actually temporarily resign from Parliament, revoke his New Zealand citizenship, and then go to a by-election to be re-elected as member of New England. It was a big shit show at the time when it was happening. And what I found most interesting about it was, had Scott Ludlam not have resigned, no one would have noticed, like all these other people having dual citizenship, because no one actually really looked at it before. Yes, it is true. You're not allowed to be a dual citizen of any country, any other country, and sit in the Australian Parliament. But you have to ask the question, how many politicians have come and gone through Parliament where they were dual citizens and they never revoked it? I would say hundreds. We only started paying attention to it when Scott Ludlam resigned, and then got publicity as a result of that. So now, in that case, right, the parties were going after each other, because it would be politically advantageous if you could knock one of those MPs out for ineligibility. So, for example, the coalition went after Bill Shorten because Bill Shorten was born in England. So I don't see why it's okay to say go after Bill Shorten for being a POM, but it's not okay to go after Josh Frydenberg for being Hungarian. Why is it racist to go after Josh Frydenberg but not after Bill Shorten? I don't really see that. Now, granted, one of the other lawyers who wrote articles on this, I think he was actually, a counter-Semite. And the one thing that makes me think that is he actually wrote a novel called The Holocaust Survivor, which was based in like a future Melbourne, funnily enough.
What?
Yeah, don't you remember that? You don't remember that?
I don't think I have.
Okay, because I remember we discussed it at the time. And I actually reached out a couple of times. I wanted to get that guy on. God, what was his name? I forget the guy's name now. Trevor Polton.
Okay.
And he used to be a member of the Labor Party as well.
Oh, terrible, terrible.
Anyway, this woman, Vanessa Blyer, she is actually a specialist environmental lawyer with a distinguished career spanning over 20 years. This is how the party has described her. So you can tell she basically fits the bill in terms of a Green candidate to put forward here. So Josh Frydenberg has said that this is repugnant for them to have appointed her. So Frydenberg told The Australian that the Greens had been joined in their parliamentary ranks by someone who was involved in the failed and disgraceful Section 44 case against me, a case that was not only legally flawed, but insensitive in the extreme, with the full court of the federal court finding unanimously in my favour, with the costs awarded against the applicant. Yeah, that's true. Well, that's true.
What? Yes.
But, I mean, look, that's the federal court. I can't imagine them making a ruling that would actually remove a Jew from political power. Okay. I can't imagine that, a situation where that's going to happen. Okay. Just lost my spot in the prep there. Oh, one last story on anti-Semitism. And that was, I was reading this article in The Australian, not your typical kind of news article. It was about the state of mental health in Australia for Australian Jews. It started off with this story about some psychologist who had a Jewish client who came to see her, had come to see her over a few years. And then suddenly the psychologist started talking about her Jewishness, like it was part of her essence. In other words, she kind of pathologized her Jewishness, you could say. The psychologist brought it up because she had a number of Palestinian clients um, who felt persecuted by the Israeli government. And I mean, is there any Palestinian who doesn't feel that way? So anyway, the article was not big on detail. It didn't really elaborate on what it meant exactly by the psychologist being interested in the person's Jewishness. But it went on to just discuss the overall mental health of Australian Jews. So before October 2023, October 7, 2023, Jewish Australians showed mental health rates broadly comparable to the general population. The baseline has since been significantly disrupted. A Monash University national survey of 7,611 Jewish Australians found that 44% reported feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge daily. And then this person, because they're psychologists themselves, say, across my own practice and through colleagues sharing observations across several states, a consistent clinical picture has emerged. Heightened anxiety and hypervigilance, distress at the invalidation of grief, social withdrawal and loss of friendships and collegial relationships, and quiet dropout from treatment. Yeah, that person they talked about, whose psychologist talked to them about their Jewish essence, stopped seeing that psychologist. So, yeah, even your local therapist is anti-Semitic now, it seems, and they can't get the same kind of mental health support that they used to get. Okay. Wow. All right, let's go on to immigration. So, the coalition, of course, with their new plan to reduce migration based on values, discriminating on values. Angus Taylor's not actually afraid to use the term discriminate. Anyway, it would create, or it would require major changes to the current scheme. And you actually get some people questioning about whether this would be possible without extensive changes to the law. Well, there's no way of really knowing that yet because we don't have any detail from Angus Taylor and how all of this would work. He was on Insiders Today talking about this, about how not only do we want to discriminate in terms of values, but where people come from dodgy countries or just bad countries, as he put it, there would have to be extra screening requirements. We don't know exactly how he would do that. It already kind of exists already. Like there are certain countries that are flagged because they're, deemed to be allied with hostile nations or just hostile nations themselves, like Iran, and they do undergo further scrutiny. But he hasn't elaborated on how exactly he's going to discriminate on values. Because as he himself pointed out, we have an Australian values statement that you're required to sign. So,
and we also have people who sign it, a document that is in administrative English, that is in English, who don't speak, comprehend, or even know the written English.
Yeah, well, they don't read it. They don't bloody read it.
Of course not.
They have a relative who does speak English or their migration agent just say, hey, you got to sign this, all right? Otherwise, you won't get in.
I was gonna
That's
say,
it.
didn't we cover a case where literally there was a migration agent who was like, yeah, by the way, go and get your darker skinned relative who's older to go and apply for your PR on your behalf.
Yeah. Oh, there's all sorts of shit like that
Did
happening.
fucking kill me.
Yeah. So the ABC is running a scare campaign now. They keep saying that this is Angus Taylor trying to steal the wind that One Nation has right now. Uh, Angus Taylor seems a little bit more reluctant to attack Pauline Hanson. Um, but no, I mean, One Nation have been talking about a net zero policy. They've also talked about having a hard cap of 130,000 people per year, uh, which would be better. It would be much better than what we currently have. I just don't see One Nation's chances of actually passing laws like that. So that is why I think Angus Taylor's current policy lacks detail because it's just bluster. It's just rhetoric, all this talking about discriminating on values. I mean, that's tough talk. Just the very use of the word discriminate makes him sound tough, just like stop the boats, something like that. And a lot of people may actually believe that the Liberal Party is tough on migration.
Here's
But
the
when you
question: what
actually
the
look at
fuck are
the
they gonna do?
numbers, yeah, I mean, okay, Tony Abbott stopped the boats, but he started the planes. Net migration went up. Non-white migration went up under Tony Abbott, and it would continue to go up under Angus Taylor. I don't see why it wouldn't.
Well, here we are.
So, not a surprise that Australia's teal independents have responded to One Nation and the Liberal Party by saying that, well, no, they support mass migration. So, Allegra Spender, Monique Ryan, Sophie Scamp, Sally Stegall, Nicolette Bowl, and Kate Cheney, they've all spoken out about the policy and insisted that Australia's high level of migration must continue, despite the fact that most polls show that a majority of Australians want to see migration cut.
Hell, even fucking
So,
even the morning, even yesterday mornings, fucking people showed that they didn't want it. No one voted for this. You'll get it. And also, what was the last one's name? Could I put that through fucking fourbears.io?
Kate Cheney.
Yes. Is she related to the friend head blower offer?
No, no.
Oh, thank God.
She's
only going to blow off the fucking the head of the Australian property market, I guess.
No. She's actually our representative here in the seat of Curtin, which that used to be Julie Bishop's seat. It's like Bedlands, Shenton Park, that area.
Yeah,
very ritzy area. So it's one of those places that was absolute blue ribbon, safe Liberal seat. But you see, now the children of those specialist doctors who live there, well, they're old enough to vote. So they vote for the Teals. Okay. Oh, God. So the owner of a Papua New Guinean hotel is attempting to sue the Australian government for unpaid bills. So this was an agreement that this proprietor made with the government in 2017 to house refugees in his establishment. But the payments stopped after a few years, even though he continued to house them. So this guy called, oh God, Mos Copiotto or something, has filed papers, and the
I'm not going
Department
to
of
help
Home
you with that one.
Affairs is named as a defendant in this case. No, I mean, this often happens. We pay these massive amounts of money for countries or even for private businesses to house refugees. I mean, we paid it wasn't Papua New Guinea, was it Nauru? I think we paid them like literally hundreds of
Nauru
millions
and
of
Christmas
dollars.
Island.
Yeah, yeah. Um, just to offload, what was it, like 30 people who were in indefinite detention in Australia, and we bribe one of these third world countries, but the bribes are just absolutely astronomically high, hundreds of millions of dollars to like just house like 30 people or something, you know. And that's the nature of our immigration system. Like if we are in a situation where we don't actually want to settle them, we have to go and pay these third world shitholes like bills almost reaching $1 billion just to house
Yeah,
like
like
under 100 people.
here's $8 million to house a rapist.
Hmm. Well, that's the thing. That's how they're able to drive a hard bargain, because they're like, well, look, you're not exactly sending us your best, are you? Well, no. People are in indefinite detention often for a reason. And yes, it does include murderers and sex offenders that we didn't want to let out into the Australian community at large. But also,
And we have, by the way.
the countries that they come from either won't accept them, or they face the death penalty because they say, raped a child or something. And it is Australian policy not to extradite or deport anyone to a country where they will face the death penalty. So we get stuck in these kind of situations where we have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to get them housed, like offshore somewhere. It's fucking ridiculous. No, just send them back to where they came from. And if they get a bullet in the head from the government, from their home country, good. What the hell's wrong with that? We're talking about people who rape children and kill people. Why do we have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars protecting them? All right. Oh, here's another beauty from the noticer. So, Indian immigrants are being shown to be very, very active in organised crime in Australia. Now, we've gone through many examples of fraud on the NDIS, which, the latest round of reforms are basically responding to ethnic organised crime. But anyway, this was an alleged organised retail theft ring that has been mainly made up of Indian migrants, many of whom were on expired visas. So they have been responsible for stealing around $10 million worth of goods from major supermarkets and funneling the stolen money to a network of receivers who then sold them on the black market for profit. How about that? So this was about a year-long police operation known as Supernova. So it's gone after a bunch of people. 18 have been in prison. 10 remain before the courts. And the final arrest was of a 39-year-old Indian illegal migrant who was filmed by a current affair being escorted out of his Sunshine West home. Oh, God. All right, let's go on to climate and energy. So, the Energy Minister, Penny Sharp, has met with disgruntled landowners who are impacted by the renewable energy zone in New England. New England is Barnaby Joyce's electorate. in rural New South Wales, of course. And the minister is said to be committed to work with these farmers to minimise the impact on their land. But she did also say that the renewable energy transition must go ahead. So, in other words, she's saying, well, look, we are going to build these transmission lines and these other green energy eyesores out here in the regional areas so that we can provide green energy to the city. And that is going to, in part at least, be built on your land. Or it's going
What's
to...
the version of eminent domain that we have over here?
compulsory acquisition, we call it.
Okay.
That's what they call it in the castle when you watch that.
Shit.
But you see, some of this stuff, it's not exactly eminent domain. Like, they don't just take the property. They say, no, you can keep the property, but we're still going to build on it. We're still going to put transmission lines over it. So I don't know exactly what you call that. But yeah, that is definitely a thing. And there is, because people are so gung-ho about rolling this stuff out quickly, the consultation process with these farmers and other property owners in the regional areas is said to go for too long. They're like, no, we need to fast track this stuff. We need to streamline it. And essentially what that means is you ignore all of those hicks who complain about their property being destroyed or being taken or being devalued, or environmental degradation that occurs around where they live as a result of these programs. But, they're the ones who have to deal with the brunt of it. We don't have to deal with those massive transition lines in the suburbs or in the city.
Yes, because they're below ground.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Like, people don't know what the scope of this thing is. High voltage lines. They're a big fucking thing. They're a big fucking concrete fucking plinth to stand on. Because of the lens force and etc. Like, there's an absolute shit ton involved in this, including stars moving all the fucking material out there, which disturbs your fucking your livestock and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I guess we're doing this. I did actually like one of the videos that I saw yesterday of a farmer actually fighting this stuff off. But yeah, again, as we say, like, he's won that battle, but the war is another question.
Yeah, look, these projects are going ahead. Don't you worry about that. They may be consulting people, or at least have the veneer of community consultation, but this stuff is happening whether they like it or not. Okay, now the Minns government, New South Wales, has launched a $100 million electric vehicle push. So this is to get more public chargers, curbside charging, and support for electric trucks. They have electric trucks. I mean, I know about the Cybertruck, that god-awful thing.
I haven't heard about electric, like, fucking 18-wheelers.
Yeah, I doubt they'd be talking about ones that big. I mean, we've only just recently been able to make, like, electric four-wheel drives, so I don't know how they could. Yeah,
I was gonna say, like transits, like electric transits.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, on ABC 7:30, I think it was, a few days ago, they had this thing where they were like, okay, we're going to take an electric vehicle on a road trip. So, they go to more regional areas. And when they pulled up to a charger, they were all taken. There was already a ton of people there charging. And, of course, then if you've basically got a flat battery, it takes around an hour to fully charge your car. Not like when you fill up with petrol, where it takes like a minute. So the inconvenience of electric cars is certainly a big drawback. And also, we definitely lack the chargers. There's a massive shortage of them, especially when you go out to these rural areas. They say that, there's only like one or two stations in the whole town that will offer chargers to you. And then, of course, when you get there, there's a massive queue because everyone else is there waiting to charge their car. So,
you and whose GPO?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we're going to get more of that now because, as well as the general government push to get more electric vehicles, people are buying more because of the increased fuel prices caused by the Iran war. So this is causing like an extra spike that the government hadn't actually been prepared for. And then also, you've got a shortage of electric vehicle technicians as well, people who fix your car, like a mechanic for an EV, because we just haven't trained enough of them yet.
Oh man, it's a resonance cascade of retardedness.
Okay, that sounds like it might be able to be your show title.
Easy.
Okay, so just one environmental story. Coca-Cola, they've said that they may be pulling out of Queensland's container refund scheme if major reforms are implemented. So this is the Containers for Change. So there was an inquiry here in Queensland, and it found evidence of alleged conflicts of interest, unfair contracts, bullying, and harassment. Now, what this is about when you take your cans to recycling and you get 10 cents back.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah. And, I found out actually this is something that some people on the NDIS do, like to give them a sense of purpose in their life. They get someone contracted on the NDIS to take them out and collect cans all day and then cash them in.
Is that the fucking people I see like on yellow bin day or recycling bin day that come out and they rifle through my bins? Is that? Oh,
yeah,
God.
maybe.
That's terrifying, Finian.
Yeah. Now look, I don't know exactly what's going on here, but yeah, they're saying that there's corruption, there's conflicts of interest, things going on here. Maybe even the NDIS is involved. I mean, when you consider the amount of dodgy people exploiting the NDIS, maybe they're tied up in all of this as well. But anyway, Coca-Cola said that if they carry out this new batch of reforms that are said to deal with things like corruption and conflict of interest, they're going to pull out of it altogether. Now,
Okay.
Unfortunately, I read through this whole article. The details have not been revealed. Like, I wish I could tell you what conflicts of interest are at least alleged here, but there are none. So I simply thought this story was worth.
Is the cat fighting you?
No, I'm just adjusting my posture in my chair. I love my office chair. I can lean right back on it. It's great. But no, I mean, this is part of the recycling scam, because recycling in most countries is a scam. Like, often you need to emit more carbon into the atmosphere to recycle a product than you do making that product from scratch.
Yep, everything but functionally aluminium.
Right,
and
so
that's
I guess,
about it.
Well, that's an exception here because we're talking about aluminium cans, aren't we?
Yeah, no, but that's the exception, unfortunately. But yeah, no. Again, Coca-Cola does use PE, LPE, low density polyethylene. That's for the plastic bottles. But yeah, no. Again, like the hips that like Coca-Cola uses for its general packaging, um, the printing that it uses, etc. Like Coca-Cola isn't just the aluminium can.
No, it's the bottle as well.
It's the entire fucking process.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, actually recycling that shit. Yeah, no. And doing a proper fund system or like a refund system when it comes to that, no. Mostly because the company is held accountable for a little bit of it. So yeah, no, that's not going to happen either.
Well, the main company involved in Australia for recycling is Visy, the Visy Corporation. You know who owns that? Pratt Industries.
Yes, there we go.
The Pratt family. They are of Polish Jewish origin, and they have a near monopoly on recycling in Australia. Okay. All right. So, Aboriginal news. So, an Indigenous leader, Travis Lovett, who does not look all that Indigenous when you look at him, he's going to be leading a national walk for truth. So, this is a 5 week long trek from Melbourne to Canberra to call on the government to act on delivering truth telling for First Nations communities. Okay, so this is the third pillar of their demands, like voice, treaty, truth. Truth telling is, the very Orwellian term for telling Whitey what we did to them through atrocities and massacres and land theft and all of that. And I say it's Orwellian because it's the complete opposite. Everything they tell is just bullshit. Uh, Quadrant's been good at debunking this stuff. Um,
Again, thank you to Quadrant.
yes.
Yeah, in terms of like all of this stuff, like it is really a fucking it's a fifth column. It's just a branch to government that we really no one voted for, no one actually oversees, and it's like well where power is, where power can buy, power buys this, right?
It's an industry, and that's what it
Yes.
is. It's just it's a grift. And I mean, what is also sad about it is that it is basically white people who are getting in on it. I mean, I'm looking at this Travis Lovett guy right now, the guy who's leading the walk. He has brown hair and blue eyes. I can't see like a hint of Aboriginal in this guy at all. Um, but they're the ones making money off this. So they're talking about incorporating traditional customs in the walk. So, for example, the carrying of message sticks between different Indigenous communities along the way. Um, God, I remember I had an old high school friend who told me he was trying to talk up like Indigenous achievement, and he said to me that Aborigines basically invented the internet. This was how he described it. And I was like, okay, what do you mean by that? And he was like, oh, the message sticks, how they were able to communicate information on a wide scale. And I was like, you're calling that the internet, are you? The passing of message sticks, which, by the way, they probably didn't even do. Uh, I mean, Aborigines didn't even really have a developed form of language. And I don't mean written language, I mean spoken language. Some
Yes.
of the tribes basically just had a bunch of hisses and clicks and grunts. And that was really all they did.
If you go to your local, museum, normally they are actually, very, very truthful about these things. They'll have an asterisk and say like, "Oh, this is post-colonial." So find like indigenous Aboriginal activities, languages, cultures that are post-colonial. I'm gonna give you a spoiler. You won't find many.
No, you won't. Yeah, because look, some people do know that things like the boomerang, the didgeridoo were not invented by Aborigines, but it's
Dot
like it's
paintings.
basically anything. Like, just think of anything that they claim to have made. Think of "Welcome to Country," actually, or "Acknowledgement of Country,"
That
or
was the 1990s.
well, "Welcome to Country" was devised in the 1970s by Ernie Dingo and some other guy.
Oh yes.
Uh,
The flag,
many of the
their
stories,
actual identity, the collective race. That was the 60s.
the Dreamtime stories as well. A lot of those were invented by
20s.
like white teachers.
Oh, trust me, like the Jews like to deconstruct Europeans. Trust me, we could do much, much worse to the Aboriginal Australians.
Like, I wouldn't really care if Aborigines wanted to make that stuff up. It's not that annoys me. I mean, yeah, it's not true, but if they want to believe it and talk about it, like, whatever, throw them a bone, because they have like nothing to be proud of. So as a consolation prize, we can just let them, make up some shit. Where I've got the problem is where they have this kind of crap and call it truth telling. And they try to tell us like, you guys created a genocide against us and forcefully took our land while we tried to fight for it. All of that stuff is just not true. Like, we didn't take any of their land. We came and we settled on land that was not being used.
I still love that they actually use terra nullius as a term. It's like, oh yeah, like no one's land.
Yeah, the British never used that term, terra nullius. They never did that. Like, they did say that Australia was like virtually uninhabited, but there was never like an act or a decree or a decision that declared Australia terra nullius. That doesn't exist. That's another thing that Quadrant has debunked.
The only group that actually called this land empty was the Polynesians.
Yeah, because I mean, when they came here, it probably looked pretty bloody empty. I mean, when the British settled here, there were around 500,000 Aborigines in Australia, if that. I've heard other estimates as low as about 300,000. And people say that we wiped all of the Aborigines out in Tasmania. Well, they basically wiped themselves out, but also, do you know how many Aborigines were in Tasmania? 2,000. 2,000. That's like the size of a small suburb, right? That's it. There was barely any there. They were like teetering on the edge of extinction when it was colonized.
Yeah.
And they probably would have all died anyway if the British never went there. They were on the verge of extinction anyway. Okay.
Let's move on.
All right. So the Northern Territory government has released their Aboriginal Affairs framework. So that outlines their Indigenous policy for the next 3 years. So there are 6 priorities here. The Aboriginal Affairs Minister, Steve Edgington, says that will improve the Northern Territory's closing the gap outcomes. Now, Indigenous organisations say they were not properly consulted on the plan before releasing it. I've got a feeling they were, and the reason I say that is because there is no government in the country that the Aboriginal industry hates more than the Country Liberal Party in the Northern Territory. They despise them. And when it comes to the closing the gap targets, well, they're the only territory that is singled out where they say, oh, look, they're not meeting the targets, and therefore we need to cut funding. Their Commonwealth funding should be cut. Never mind the fact that every other jurisdiction doesn't meet the targets either, because they are virtually impossible to meet. How can you possibly bring Aboriginal literacy rates up to the standards of white Australians, for example? You can't.
We're getting close, though. We're lowering the A so the B can get closer.
Well,
yeah.
no,
well, it's sad, but it's true.
They only sometimes, they'll get slightly better rates of school attendance or something. You know why? Because they threaten their parents that they're going to cut their dole off if they don't send their kids to school. You know, it's only when they apply the stick, when they go okay, your Gibbs are under threat. If you don't at least send your kid to school, for the majority of the term.
I still remember when I was talking to one SEER guy. This is 3 years ago, and it was oh yeah, oh you're saying your job's getting easier. Why? It's well, they literally started threatening the parents of the children. That was after the KFC riot.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
because Abos love KFC as well. They love fried chicken.
It's odd.
All right. To the related topic of crime, we're going to start off in Adelaide Women's Prison. So, ABC, you're horrified over the treatment of one of its inmates. So this is a female prisoner who was denied a medical termination, abortion, of course, is what that means, because there is no overnight medical monitoring at the prison. So yeah, this woman was pregnant, obviously, when she went into the women's prison. She wanted to have the pregnancy terminated, and because there was no overnight medical monitoring, as they put it, they were not able to give her that. So they also said that there was just a general shortage of materials and products to deal with an abortion, which I find strange, because the type of women who actually find themselves going to jail are very often, popping out plenty of kids. So, yeah, I don't know how this happened, but the
there's a terrible joke in there, but I'm not going to make it.
I'm sure there is. But yeah, I love how, when you refer to it as a medical termination, you're just trying to make it sound like a procedure, aren't you?
It's a euthanasia. Oh, fucking gee. Actually, yeah, there's another joke in there as well. There's a euphemism on top of another fucking euphemism. It's, what are we talking about here, people?
Yeah, you're talking about killing a child, or at least killing a fetus.
Fuck this entire fucked world.
Yeah, look, I don't exactly want these women to be having babies.
No, but
that's why you sterilize them. Sterilize them, and you wouldn't have this problem in the first place.
We're gonna treat crazy women like stray cats.
And look,
they're functionally the same thing. Like they roam the streets and they strike out at random people.
I'm not sure actually if I mean, abortions, are they free? I've never looked into this.
Currently in the state, yes.
They are, okay. What about
Yep.
getting your tubes tied? Is that free?
No.
Because it should be.
That should tell you what the impedance is here.
Yeah, because
and it's not impedance of the dick; it's impedance of the state.
I mean, it may well be like a costly procedure, but I'd say it would have long-term economic benefit, surely, because you're effectively removing drains on the economy, but before they've even had a chance to drain the economy.
Look at this Irish eugenicist.
No, well, I think I said last time, like, eugenics only became like a dirty word after World War II. It was something that was supported on both sides of politics. So, I mean, for example, in the UK, you had Winston Churchill from the Conservative side who supported it. You also had George Bernard Shaw from the Fabian Socialist side who supported it. They were talking about things like sterilizing handicapped people or habitual criminals, things like that. And by the way, that's better than what we used to do. We used to just kill those people. That's how we took them out of the gene pool, was actually just kill them.
So what, we Sam Hyder them? We're just going to kill them?
No, we don't have to kill them. We, it's
no, there's
the movie Minority Report. It's pre-crime. It's pre-crime. Yeah, I mean, does anyone have? I mean, these women who are having, these babies in prison. I mean, that child, it's very fitting that they would have been born into a prison because that's where they're going to end up anyway. After not too long. Okay. All right, so New South Wales has new bail laws, kind of following on from other states. Tougher bail laws, if you will. So many lawyers have criticised those new laws. They've done so in a parliamentary inquiry into the youth justice system in New South Wales. So they're arguing that the laws lead children to plead guilty to crimes they may not have committed in order to avoid jail. Well, look.
How?
Yeah, I know. And also, like, that just sounds like plea bargaining to me, which would exist, like, without reforms to bail laws. I mean, this happens all the time. They say, look, if you can plead guilty to this, we'll drop these charges here and we won't have to go to trial. You just, you'll serve just a short sentence. I mean, that's plea bargaining. We do that all the time. So anyway, it said the bail laws for repeat offenders were introduced in 2024 and extended following a wave of concern about an increase in crime in regional towns. And they're mainly talking about youth crime here. That's because shitskins are moving to the country now. That goal of Alan Jones and the Liberal Party saying, migration would be fine as long as we sent them out to the regional areas as well as the suburbs and the cities, then it would be fine. Well, all you've done is just pushed crime into those country areas now.
Welcome to hell. Or, not crime, but your next One Nation candidate.
Yes, that as well. Maybe that's the real thing driving One Nation's spike in support. Just the amount of Indians we're importing.
Yes, I mean, there shall be one nation.
Yeah.
The Dravidian one. Oh, fuck me. That is terrible. I don't even want to think about that. Fuck.
Okay. So, going back to Tasmania. So, a committee that was set up to scrutinise the Tasmanian government's response to a commission of inquiry into child sexual abuse has criticised a taxpayer-funded for at-risk youth. So this outreach program called Beast, they received
What?
3.7. Yeah, Beast. It's an acronym. I'm not sure what it stands for, but it received $3.7 million from the state government as part of an election promise. And the committee has deemed this highly inappropriate. Now, the Beast program, they say that they have had considerable success, and they're accounting for that high amount of funding through reporting measures. Okay, so what this is, it's one of these bloody youth diversionary programs where, we're told by the bleeding hearts that, if we just gave these kids a chance and allowed them to express themselves through sport or the arts or whatever it is, then they won't want to go out and commit crimes.
If we just gave these beasts a chance.
Yes, if we did. And it's funny, like, every time you see the parents of one of these Africans who, is involved in gang crime or is the victim of gang crime or something like that, have you
Hey,
noticed they always say they just wanted to be a basketball player?
you know what? I'm a teacher. I'm gonna teach these fucking kids. I'm gonna reach out to them. I don't care if they're basically fucking chimpanzees, and one of them is probably gonna stab me in the fucking liver.
Yeah, but every time, like one of these advocacy groups, like some Sudanese group, comments on the massive youth crime in their community, I always notice two things. One is they'll say, well, look, they were born in Australia, okay? They went through Australian institutions, Australian schools. They were dealt with by the Australian criminal justice system. So it's actually nothing to do with us. And then the other thing is, it's the government's fault for not letting them play enough basketball or something like that.
Oh, dude, fucking and number three, we don't have this in our own country. It's like, yeah, because your fucking son would be a child soldier in your own country, and rape wouldn't be a thing, put on the government ledger.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Idi Amin was like a brutal dictator. He was really no different to any other tin pot African leader. They just understand their own people, and they know that you have to take no shit with them. You need to bring them immediate, painful punishment. That's the only way you can teach them a lesson and pull them into line. And we don't have that kind of system here in Australia. So
I do have one disagreement with Idi Amin. He is not king of the Scots.
no, he's not. The only reason he was singled out was because he was anti-Israel.
Oh yes, yeah. No, he was anti-banking. I'll give him that as well.
What the way he managed his country, and the political persecutions and everything, was no different to like basically any other African leader. He was no different.
Of course. If you want to rule Africans, you have to rule like an African, fucking brutal, murderers, genocidal, dictator, despots. That's what you need to do.
Yeah. Okay, so in Victoria, the opposition there, so the Liberals under Jess Wilson, they said that they will toughen bail laws and sentencing as well. So they want to take ideas from the Queensland government, and that is adult time for adult crime. So they want to expand the number of offences that young people can be charged with. They want to increase those sentences as well, particularly for serious crimes such as burglary, assault, and attempted murder. Now, not a surprise that they would want to take such a tough on crime stance. I'm not sure what the figures are currently, but I know that, only recently crime rates were at their highest ever recorded rate in Victoria. Highest ever. Ever since we started gathering crime data, like the early 1900s or whatever it was. And considering the fact that they've implemented a machete ban and like a machete amnesty for depositing your machete, which is costing shit tons of money, it's pretty obvious who's causing the crime. And while I would support the Liberal Party's criminal justice policy over Labor's, it's still very disappointing. I mean, but the Libs won't actually say like who is causing this crime. Someone who did say it was Peter Dutton. He actually specifically singled out Sudanese in Melbourne.
How many years ago, though?
That was a few years ago, yeah, and he wasn't leader when he said that. But, it must be on their minds at least. I'm sure Jess Wilson knows who it is committing this kind of crime in Victoria at these records.
I remember a day back in Victoria when, like, some fucking shit had to do a drive-by with his speaker saying, like, Sudanese are welcome, racist or not, and the public punched out the speakers.
Good.
But that was nearly, a decade ago.
Yeah, and I mean, they've been moving to Melbourne and Adelaide for quite a while now, but I'm definitely seeing more and more of them in Perth. And I don't think we've had like any machete attacks, but we've definitely had stabbings with
in Kelmscott, yes. Yeah. But also we're having a cultural shift, an actual hard cultural shift. I'm seeing both the the upper middle class and etc. decide that this isn't functional for them.
No,
because it isn't, and that's mostly because they're $9,000 a fucking semester schools are now getting in shitified.
Right.
Which is good at this point, really. I do love shitification when it targets the right people.
Yeah, same. No disagreement there. Okay, now here in WA, there are plans to convert the Bullsbrook quarantine facility into a prison. Now, look, we're going to COVID times here, and governments around the country either built quarantine facilities or had other facilities converted, and this was for people to quarantine while they had COVID. Some people speculated at the time. I remember having a disagreement with David Hiscox about this on XYZ Live, that this was like a government's way of actually constructing concentration camps to house political dissidents. Well, that never happened. But when you look at what is happening here, I know that's going to cause a lot of the, the more hardcore COVID conspiracy theorists to say, well, look, see, told you, they're making one of them a jail now. Well, okay, we have overcrowding. And also that facility has been lying there essentially empty for years now. And it's only now with a growing population, criminal population, Now they're only just starting to talk about turning it into a prison.
That is literally the worst place to turn to a fucking prison.
You reckon?
Yep.
Why is that?
It's about 35 minutes walk from Pierce Air Base.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But I would have thought that the way, because obviously it's designed to have like, quarantining people, having them in their own quarters, that would mean that like, it'd be easier to convert those into cells, prison cells. But you're just talking about the actual location of the place.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Also, it's medium security, which means like mid to etc. class criminals, which is that's my class criminal, and yeah, just like learning to drive daddy's boat, some of them actually learn to fly daddy's plane. So yeah, no, that's not a good idea.
Yeah. I imagine some of them would be motivated to hijack a plane to
Yeah.
get out of there.
Also, here's an over and under for PS Air Base security for the MCP. No, stop this. This is a fucking horrific idea.
Okay. No, I mean we do need another prison. I'd say just about everywhere. Every capital city needs an additional prison because we've got overcrowding, which means you've got to like double bunk prisoners, which massively increases the chance of sexual assault and assault generally.
Here's a good idea: go up Reed Highway, keep going, and pass when you get past the women's prison. Just keep going, and when you feel like you've run out of like your playlist and etc., stop. That's where you put the next prison. What the fuck were they thinking?
All right, fair enough. I'm just looking on social media. Fatima Payman said she's at week 36 of her pregnancy. The baby is now the size of the letters. Well done, Fatima.
Kill us.
All right.
Kill us.
So talking about illegal tobacco, according to The Australian, the supply of all nicotine tobacco products in Australia will be almost exclusively provided by organised crime by 2030 if the current trends continue. Well, I mean, I doubt it'll actually get that bad. That would mean like literally everyone you see smoking around you would be smoking illegal cigarettes. I don't know if that's quite true.
We shall see.
Look, this article, though, that I read this from, they're talking about tobacco companies who are actually pleading with the government to drop the excise tax. So they're saying that like the excise of about a $50 pack of cigarettes, the excise is about $28. And that's not including GST, by the way. So, yeah, like the majority of your pack is tax. And if you buy that pack on the black market, it sells for about $20. I've heard cheaper. I've heard people getting packs for like 15. So, yeah, the government, as we know thus far, has refused to budge on this, even though for the first time ever in decades, smoking rates are going up and the revenue collected from smoking has gone down. And on top of that, the government is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on crackdown measures to close these down. But according to these figures, they're not doing it very well, or at least they can't keep up with the growth of the black market. So yeah, there was a submission put to the government by Philip Morris, which is one of the tobacco giants, saying, "Look, you have got to cut the excise. You've got to cut it. That's the only practical way of actually fighting this. It's not really a problem of organized crime. It's a problem of making a product so much more expensive than what it should be." So I hate to agree with big tobacco, but yeah, they're right. All right.
Yeah. I
So
might also ask for a reprieve.
a reprieve.
Yeah, no, I'm tired as shit.
Okay, we could maybe finish this one tomorrow if that's better for you.
A story in 3 parts is possibly one of the best.
That's all right. Okay, well we'll reconvene tomorrow. Okay, well in the end, Nolsey never came back, so here we are with me, Just Fenian. I'm going to finish off the rest of the prep for episode 274. Not that there's much, so here we go. We were just talking about illegal tobacco. Well, guess what? The Northern Territory has ranked last out of all Australian states and territories for its response to tackling illicit tobacco. So this was a report that came out from the Australian Council on Smoking and Health, and looked at each jurisdiction and what they're doing. So the Northern Territory falls behind in terms of tackling illegal tobacco. And you know what? It's no surprise. I mean, just think of it. Who are the biggest smokers? Aboriginal people would have to be the biggest smokers. And, it's funny, like, because of the fact that this is, we have GST and excise tax, any tax that you have on a product is what they call a regressive tax. In other words, the poor end up paying a greater proportion. And considering just how much Aborigines smoke, it's a ton. So the government, to a large extent, is dependent on these tax dollars coming from poor people, and that includes a hell of a lot of Aboriginal people. But, I mean, look, is this something to do with the Northern Territory being bad at tackling this problem? Or is it more just to do with the fact that you have shit tons of Aborigines who live in the Northern Territory, and they're the ones most likely to smoke? I'd say that's the problem. Okay. So last story on crime. So the Labor opposition in Queensland, they're going to pass a private member's bill that seeks to close a loophole that they say is protecting pedophiles and institutions. So what they're getting at here was a 2024 case in the High Court that found that the Catholic Church was not vicariously liable, for the actions of a pedophile priest. The reason why is because he was not an employee, or not considered to be an employee of the church. So that's the loophole right there. If you're you've got some kind of religious title, like a priest or a pastor or something, you're technically not an employee of that church. So the problem with this, though, I mean, if the institution is to gain responsibility, it's like, how far do you want to take that? When it comes to the Catholic Church, for example, you're talking about what is essentially a multinational entity. And should it actually just be the local church, the church that he worked at, or should it actually be the Catholic Church as a whole? I want to see that kind of detail first. When it comes to those who, say, employed him, those who were senior to him at the local level, well, yeah, there probably does need to be some level of institutional responsibility laid there. But if you want to take it as far as the Vatican, well, I think you're going a step too far. So, I'd want to see how that works. Okay, now on to the issue of child safety. Again, in Queensland, the Child Safety Commission of Inquiry was launched in May last year in Queensland by the Liberal National Government to review systemic problems in child safety. This is mainly to do with home care, putting children into foster care, that kind of thing. So this inquiry found that there is severe underfunding. It came under significant stress during the COVID years, and it hasn't really gotten over that yet. So the inquiry heard that the department had been dealing with exponential growth in costs, where which was all to do with things like children in family-based foster care and kinship care. There's a massive. They're massively under-resourced here, and the fact that you had that tranny who ended up like in the care of two foster children. I mean, I think that shows just like kind of how desperate they're getting, because this guy, remember, he was not just a tranny, he was a triple murderer. Yet somehow he was in the same house as two children in foster care. God knows how that worked out. Now, there are an increasing amount of children that are entering out of home care in Queensland. That's probably around the country as well, but these stories I'm going by here are from Queensland. Now, over here in Western Australia, the West Australian government is rolling out 130,000 doses of needle-free influenza vaccine for children aged 2 to 11 years old. So there you go. If you're afraid of needles, like some people are, it's funny, my mum is a nurse, and she's told me funny stories about people actually passing out like just before they take an injection. So if you don't like needles, you can do this method instead. It's actually just the form of a nasal spray. And I know they're doing that increasingly for other medication as well. They find easier ways of doing it if you don't like needles. Okay, so state politics. South Australia One Nation. So One Nation retained the South Australian seat of Noarunga. So that means, the end result that we have in South Australia is One Nation on 4 seats, the Liberal Party on 5, and the Labor Party on God knows how many. They cleaned up, we know that. So the final count has One Nation's Chantel Thomas winning the seat of Noarunga by only 74 votes. So wafer thin margin there. Now, the Electoral Commission revealed that 81 unopened ballots for that seat had been discovered. Now, considering the fact that she only won by 74 votes, that's actually a lot. Okay, when you consider a margin this thin, you've got to be very careful. Like, every single vote counts there. And it's funny how they were just suddenly found. I'm not suggesting foul play here or anything, but ever since the West Australian election last year, there's been all these reports about mismanagement, ballot papers going missing or suddenly turning up again, not having enough ballots on election day, that kind of thing. Kind of stuff that you associate with a third world country, either because they're rigging it or because they're incompetent. In our cases, I think it's just probably more just incompetence. Yeah. Um, so the Liberal Party under Ashton Hearn say that they can definitely rebuild, despite the fact that they were crushed in the previous election. And yes, because they have retained 5 seats here, they are going to remain the official opposition, despite the fact that Cory Bernardi, who is the leader of One Nation in South Australia, has, he's claimed like a moral claim to be the opposition because their primary vote was higher than that of the Liberals. Well, sorry, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The Libs got more seats than you. Just barely, but still, they are going to be the official opposition. Cory's been trying to get other people over to his side. That hasn't really worked. And I don't think that the independents or anything would be particularly interested in making One Nation the official opposition. If they were, I mean, I think you would quickly find that their popularity would start to tank. It has already taken a hit at the federal level because of that staffer that they had employed who was a rapist. Now, this really just confirms something that I've been saying for a long time about One Nation, and that is their sudden surge in popularity to a very large extent was based on the catastrophic leadership of Susan Lee. And when voters see a party that is not being managed well, that is not being run well, and not doesn't have party discipline, doesn't vet candidates properly, just generally when they see mismanagement of a party, support will naturally fall for that party. And so what do we see here? People start to see the cracks appear in the One Nation juggernaut, and they see things like them not vetting candidates properly and hiring convicted rapists. And then it's not such a big surprise that the public says, oh, well, we don't like that. And you start to see One Nation's vote fall. Okay. So, going to the Federal Liberal Party. So, Angus Taylor has launched a strident takedown of the increased role of government in the economy since COVID, and has vowed to eradicate the nanny state if he becomes Prime Minister. Now, one of the reasons he's saying this is because his counterpart in the Nationals, Matt Canavan, has actually been pushing for more of a government interventionist approach. Now, the Nationals have always been a little bit more pro-interventionist than the Liberals. That's pretty well established. However, Matt Canavan is more so. He's talked about protectionism. He's talked about subsidies. He's talked about tariffs. He doesn't like the idea of a new gas tax, though, but, that's another story. But it seems that Angus Taylor has to kind of fend off these tendencies within the coalition to say, you know what, maybe we took the neoliberalism thing a little bit too far and we need to backtrack. Because, it's not popular. And, there's been a big trend in conservatism, like ever since Trump, to have a bit more of a protectionist stance on things and not talk about the free market so much. Now, when Angus Taylor took over the leadership, that sort of prompted, or forced, I should say, Andrew Hastie to start talking up the free market again and talk about how bad big government is, even though he was only just previously talking about reviving Australia's car industry. And how else would you do that besides protectionism? You really can't. So it's interesting to see this tension within the coalition at the moment. And who knows if it'll actually sort itself out before the next election. But one thing is definitely clear. The heyday of neoliberalism is over. People on both sides of politics are getting a little sick of it. More people on the right side of politics want to fight the culture war. And they have very little interest in talking about the economic policies of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. No. They're fine to kind of go back to more of a kind of national conservatism and start fighting the culture wars again. Okay, now, the Liberal Party's candidate for the Nepean by-election, Anthony Marsh, is being investigated by Victoria's Transport Department for unauthorised roadworks in a campaign stunt with opposition leader Jess Wilson. I'm sorry. This is regarding the Liberal Party in Victoria, I should say. My prep is slightly out of order. Now, look, they do face a serious challenge from One Nation in this seat. Their candidate is Darren Hercus. So having a scandal right before a by-election is certainly not a good thing. So that may well mean that One Nation have a chance here, and it would be their very first seat in the Victorian lower house. Okay, now we're also going to have a by-election in Stafford. This is a seat in Queensland. So this will be held on the 16th of May. Now this is because of the death of Jimmy Sullivan. So he was the former Labor MP. He then turned independent because of an alleged domestic violence incident at his house. He was never charged, so obviously he was never convicted either. Important to point that out, but yeah, look, this guy I don't think could deal with the public pressures that this put on him, and he took his own life. Well, we don't know that yet. There's no confirmation, as far as I know. But, you know, it seems pretty clear. He was also an alcoholic. So, okay. So on to political donations. So years of disclosure history about who has made donations to political parties and candidates in Victoria has been wiped from the public record after the High Court threw out all donation rules and left the state exposed to unchecked influence. Political parties are frantically trying to make sense of the possible implications and have committed to transparency during the blackhead period in the law, which overlaps with the Nepean by-election. So the Victorian Electoral Commission disclosure page normally tracks all disclosed donations and has annual reports for all political parties, their nominated entities and third-party campaigners. All these disclosures are no longer visible. The web page merely says that VEC disclosures is under review following a recent High Court decision affecting Victoria's political laws. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the whole purpose of having disclosure is so that you can find out who's donating to what. Certainly big donations, I think, should all be made public. You want to know why certain parties have certain policies. And certainly when it comes to, say, gambling policies, and we know that both sides of politics accept large donations from the gambling lobby, surely that has something to do with the policies that they set. You could be even more cynical about that and say it's bribery, and that means that any form of bribery should be made public. But yeah, they're much more likely to be held to account if we're open and honest about things like that. And often it leads to, say, parties refusing donations. For example, both the Coalition and Labor refused to take donations from the tobacco lobby. So, if that was done in secret, however, do you think then that they wouldn't take it? I doubt it. I'd say they'd be pretty happy to take the money. But making it public is not a good look. If you're to take money from companies like that and people know you're taking money, well, that's a very, very bad look. Some people would also say it's bad simply taking that money from like fossil fuel industries, but that's for the Greens. Okay. So, just a couple of health stories. So, the head of the Australian Medical Association has warned the nation's healthcare system is under strain, and urgent care clinics alone are not enough to solve the woes of an overburdened system. So, urgent care clinics have become a crucial pillar of the government's healthcare investment in recent years, designed to ease pressure on hospital emergency departments by diverting non-critical cases at times when most general practitioners are closed. Now, there are around 137 of these walk-in bulk bill clinics across the country. However, the AMA has warned that the clinics could inadvertently lead to more fragmented care, which could be bad for patients in the long run. They've also urged the government to invest in other parts of the health network. So the President, Danielle McCullum, said, despite the introduction of urgent care clinics, we are still seeing a logjam in our public hospital system. She described the clinics as seemingly well-meaning policy that is still a work in progress. She said, I'm glad that they are GP-led, but we need to do more to fully integrate them into our health system, with 1 in every 3 visits still lacking communication with the patient's usual GP. Okay, and something on mental health. 1 in 5 Australian MPs have considered self-harm or ending their life because of the pressures they felt from work. Yeah, so we had something on this last week as well, and I think they said something like 70% of all politicians felt that their mental health had suffered somewhat due to the pressures of the job. And yeah, look, we just talked about Jimmy Sullivan before. That guy's dead now basically because his issues at home were made public. And yeah, if I'm going to feel sorry for politicians for one thing, I guess it's that. Very often it is like the Truman Show. Your personal life can often be laid bare across the country. And yeah, it's a pretty hard thing to deal with if that coverage is negative. Okay, guardianship. Do you know what guardianship is? A lot of people learn what guardianship is after, what's her name? Britney Spears. I was about to say Britney Higgins there, but no, Britney Spears. She was, in America they call it conservatorship. And that basically meant her dad made decisions for her, legally. It was something to do with her mental state. It meant that her dad could make like financial decisions on her behalf. So in Australia, we call it guardianship, and very often it's for people with severe mental incapacity, let's say. So the state agencies which control the lives of some Western Australia's people who are part of this guardianship, they're said to be scrutinised. So state guardianship administration orders are similar to the conservatorship in America, as I mentioned. The orders are imposed on people deemed incapable of making their own decisions, for example, because of a cognitive disability. So in Australia, public trustees manage a person's financial assets, while state guardians care for and control other aspects of their lives. A parliamentary committee in WA is undertaking a wide-ranging probe into whether the state system is providing adequate services. Across Australia, about 50,000 people are under state care, and committee chair Peter Rundle said anyone could be at risk of falling into the system. He said circumstances happen, whether it might be a car accident or whether it's family illness. Maybe it's a couple that have got no children and then one of those people passes on. We, the committee, came to a unanimous decision that it was something well and truly worth looking at. Yeah, I imagine this would be a very kind of tricky area, especially when you've got someone who, say, believes they do have the mental capacity to make their own decisions. And then you've got another person arguing, no, like you need me to do it for you. Love to hear the libertarian take on this. Okay, finally, ending on transport. What an exciting topic. So Jacinta Allen is going to introduce permanent half-priced public transport fares. So this is going to be a central part of the upcoming budget, which is also just part of a significant cost of living package. The government wants you to take more public transport, not just because of the fuel crisis, although that is definitely a factor. So they want to make it even more attractive. And here's one of the ways, obviously, lowering the price. Last story. In Queensland, all riders will need to have at least a learner license and be over 16 to ride a bike. Sorry, not just normal bikes, like e-bikes, e-scooters, that kind of thing. So this is in response to, obviously, the increasing amounts of e-bikes and e-scooters that we have around. But it's also, in particular, about Uber Eats and, DoorDash stuff. All those various things where you order your food. So currently, you don't need a license to do that. And Uber are very, very unhappy about this. They're saying it's going to cause an enormous burden on them, and that many of their current workers would simply be put out of work, which, yeah, might be true. The thing is, though, they always want to be treated like a vehicle. And I hear bike riders make this argument all the time. I'll try to steer clear of the whole, rider versus driver debate. But one of the things that does annoy me is that bike riders will say, well, look, we're a vehicle, just like you. So it's fine for us to be on the road as long as we follow all the same road rules that you as a driver do. And the thing is, the same people who do that don't follow the rules. For example, riders are supposed to be single file down the road. Sometimes I see them taking up an entire lane. But the other thing is, if you want to be treated like a vehicle, like any other vehicle on the road, well, shouldn't you then also have to, say, get a license like we do, and pay registration like we do, and show your registration number like we do. It's funny how they don't want to take any of those things. So, look, to me, registration, get a license, whatever, for your bikes, these scooters, that makes sense to me. And it would encourage them to actually behave themselves when they're out there riding and, not get in our way and follow the road rules like other vehicles do. Okay, well, that is all we have for this episode, episode 274. Sorry it has taken a little while to get out to you. I think Nolsey and I are actually due to be recording episode 275 tomorrow. So, yeah, we'll probably get that to you by Thursday or so. Okay, guys, thank you for listening. Check out all our stuff at theracer.biz, and we will see you soon.